Right, let's bring in Alex. Alex is standing by first thing in the morning in Melbourne, Australia. So
not even St. Patrick's Day anymore.
Yeah. Brilliant. Alex has joined us from Melbourne. Alex is a society ambassador down there. And, brilliant to see Alex. You did a fantastic piece for Unfiltered magazine this month. Obviously, we're celebrating the 150th bottling, 150th distillery that we bottled from, and it's an Irish whiskey. So we wanted to look into the history of the society bottling non-Scotch whiskey, and you really dug into this subject and came up with some great stuff. Beyond just a list of bottles that came from elsewhere apart from Scotland. You got some great stories as well about what the society's done, and I suppose the reaction to some of these bottlings.
Yep.
So, just give us a kind of overview of your findings.
Yeah. So, hi, everyone, and happy St. Pat's Day. Great to be joining. This is a part of the society that I just love, all the little historical components of it. And what the article for Unfiltered probably didn't go into too much was just how trailblazing this was in terms of what was available on the market at the time. Dave's comments are perfect in terms of bar 1661. It was almost like an if you build it, they will come attitude he had. And to some extent, that was the same with bottling world whiskies for the society. And it was just, we like it, or we've had some good exposure to it. We think our members will like it. So let's produce it for them. But a lot of the times that was being done with a backdrop of that product or that type of product in that style not really being available or not having been tried. And that's certainly the case with, most of the world whiskies, maybe less so as we approach the more modern ones, but certainly sort of the first Irish acquisition of Distillery 51 was back in 1988, which was only, 5 years after the founding of the society. So it was quite a bold move for the then society to say, well, we're the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. We've got our membership starting to grow. We've moved from the sort of Pip Hills syndicate era, but we're going to show our members some delicious liquid that's not Scotch. And then it just sort of kept going from there. When a new good product would be discovered, I suppose, or there might be an inclination to show the members something quirky at first, and then it really developed, such as, say, with the first Japanese whiskey in 2002. That was all about enhancing member experience. And a lot of people forget as well that these new world distilleries that now are so iconic, like Taiwanese whiskey, Japanese whiskey, even Australian whiskey. We've sort of recently bottled the first Australian. They were unknown on a global scene when the society was doing a lot of this. So it's fascinating times.
But not always welcome, Alex, right? This wasn't like in some sectors, I suppose, that it was welcomed with open arms in terms of what the society was doing.
That's absolutely right. And, it's hard to tell just from the archival materials that we have exactly why that might have been. It might have just simply been sort of a pig-headedness of I don't like change. I really like my Scotch. And so that's why I joined the society. I'm a member of this group and I sort of feel like I'm not having my membership honoured because I joined a Scotch society. Could also be just that, and my theory is a lot of it is about that was probably for those people who hadn't tried anything. We're just seeing it in outturns or the then bottling lists. But for those who were trying it and sort of wasn't really taking to it, an explanation for that could certainly be that difference in style. We were in 1983, even when the society was bottling Scotch, that was coming off the back of blends being the only thing that people really cared about. And similarly for sort of a single cask Irish whiskey bottled and released, 1988, that was pretty unusual. So even sort of people who were interested in Irish whiskey were probably used to, the distillery bottlings of a much lower ABV, probably a marriage of casks, almost certainly a marriage of casks, single cask Irish, that wasn't sort of as prominent by far. So it was a shock to the system probably. And there were some amazing stories of some real member indignation. I won't name names, but, we have them because they were proud of having that thought at the time, of members writing into the society and sort of saying, we really feel like you've let us down. And we hope that there's an amazing letter from about 2002 when there was the launch sort of simultaneously almost of distilleries 116, 117 and 118, which were Japanese, Irish and Irish respectively, same distillery for 17 and 18. And it was a real, look, I hope this is the end of this experimental phase. What will be next? Bottling Japanese or Indian, who will ever appreciate that? And then obviously cut the scene in 2017 and we're proudly bottling Indian whiskey and it's delicious. But there was a real sort of stiff letter to the editor style objection from the membership base, not everyone, at that time. And then there's a really fun, when you actually dig to the materials and you get society nerd like I am, the responses to those letters, because there was clearly I wouldn't want to say factions because it was all quite peaceful and everyone ended up happy, but the people who were rejecting that as a change were probably met in equal, if not greater measure, by the group of society members sort of saying, I popped into Queen Street, I didn't know what to have, I was offered a dram of 116.2 or whatever it may be, and loved it and would never have picked it myself off a shelf or wouldn't have reached for a Japanese whiskey, but glad that they gave it to me. And the amazing thing that all of that brings into context too is we are the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. So when those new world whiskies were being brought into the stable, people who'd go to the Vaults or Queen Street or Greville and ask for a dram of something Scottish and then get given one of the New World could do quite a fun side-by-side. And there's some lovely sort of articles written or mainly just comments given in the letter to the editor style section of a couple of the bottling lists from that era saying, the similarities are so lovely, but the differences are what make them special. And so it was really fun to see members might never otherwise have picked up a Japanese or a Irish whiskey or cask strength single cask Irish whiskey at the time.
I think that's what's so special though about what we do is that, yes, you know what? Scotch whiskey is our bread and butter. It is our first true love. It is what we are so proud to bring to members. But two, we're bringing something different. And I always found that, through other spirits or other categories of whiskey, I find I have a deeper appreciation for Scotch whiskey. And, Scotch whiskey has led me to so many different types of spirits, over the years. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm really proud that, we here at the Society, that we offer that to members. We want to expose our members to new things and expand your mind and expand your palate. And I think we do that really well through all of the world whiskeys that we, like you said, have brought to the stable. And I think that's a really special thing that, not everyone does. So absolutely
right. Yeah. And on top of that as well, I couldn't agree more. And I think there's that component of when a lot of these whiskies were being acquired, like you'd acquire a distillery for the folio, but that would involve obviously procuring your first cask is effectively how that would happen. And so a lot of the time when these, less so now, and there's an amazing regime under sort of Kai and Ewan to create a spirits portfolio sort of highly managed, which benefits everybody. But back when it was sort of, we have an opportunity to get a couple of casks of, distillery 119. And a lot of the time, a distillery that was giving away cask to independent bottlers probably still applies to a lot of independent bottlers now that don't have, ongoing contracts for regular supply. They would give you a cask of something that wasn't really house style or it didn't really fit into their blending regime of that particular era or whatever. And so you would get some pretty special gems that there was nothing wrong with it. In fact, if anything, they were arguably sometimes a lot better, but they just weren't, for example, a distillery that only really focuses on bourbon cask maturation, has the occasional sherry cask or wants to put the occasional sherry cask into a vatting, might not need as many sherry casks in a particular year as it's generated. So it will sell a couple of sherry casks to like the Society. So then you find these, amazing examples of, well, for example, single cask strength sherry Japanese whiskey, which for the Japanese palate, just to make a very general comment, sort of back in pre-2000s, wasn't really into the super bold. It was all about elegance, and lots of the distilleries were focusing on really light and complex sort of bourbon cask maturation. So for Society to land some amazing, sherry cask Yamazaki in the early days of bottling any world whiskey was pretty amazing, and meant that probably elevated that to the world stage, as does, New World Whiskey winning awards and all those other things that promote it. But I think personally the society had a massive role in making sure that single cask strength, especially as a category to define it like that, was well appreciated globally, because it wasn't sort of before 1983.
Yeah, definitely. And now it feels like we're kind of come full circle to some extent. As you said, the first non-Scotch was from Ireland, different part of Ireland. And Here we are, quite a few years later, back in Ireland with 150.1.
That's it. Yep. And I think it just shows that sort of the member comments along the way have sort of probably now been just, if you don't like it, you can still buy Scotch whisky from us. You don't have to buy the bottle of whatever. So everyone calm down. I don't think there's probably many members that are still of that view anyway, because it's all about that exploration. And I think the Society's done a great job of promoting, with the whole focus on flavour profiles and different things. You shouldn't really be focused too much on what you think it is already. You should focus on how it tastes and whether you like it as a fundamental test. But yeah, the full circle is great, because I think it shows that, even though those early acquisitions might have been a little bit to do with availability, and probably the distillery was a bit unsure when the Society approached them in some cases and said, can we please get whole casks? We want to bottle it single cask. Now, obviously, there are new distilleries coming on board, and we've seen quite a big influx between about 19 and 22, 2019, 22, where people are very clearly happy to work with us. And it just means that it's mutually beneficial, because, as I'm sure the West Cork team would agree, we get their name out there. We don't sort of, it's a bad example, we don't really put it on the bottle, obviously, but we don't hide who they are, and promote their spirit. And at the same time, we probably do it in a form that then they don't really have to worry about. They can focus on creating a great house style, and everybody wins. So I think it's good to see that full circle is, if anything, probably growing in support, because there was a little bit of a gap in the middle there where there weren't many new codes coming on for world distilleries. But now, yeah, that's not a problem by the looks of it.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Right, Alex, great for you to join us early in the morning, Melbourne time. Maybe a wee bit early for a dram for you.
I've got my breakfast whiskey ready. I wish I had a Belfast coffee now. Listening to
yeah.
That would have been a good call.
Crack open the poaching. Fantastic.
Exactly. I haven't tried 150, but I've got a 51.18. So I am on the Irish for the breakfast.
Very good.
But pleasure.
Excellent. Well, thanks for popping in, Alex. Enjoy the rest of your day. And good
Slanger, guys. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you very much. Good man.